Sarah stepped into Charlie's enclosure, and the moment their eyes locked, something unexplainable happened. Charlie froze. Then, with a speed that shocked everyone, he sprinted toward her, his face lighting up with recognition. But then she saw it. The painting. How did he know she'd return? What happened next will shock even those who thought they'd seen everything. But first, let's go back to the beginning. At the Clearwater Wildlife Sanctuary, a bond had been forged through years of unspoken understanding, one that neither time nor distance could easily break. Charlie, a chimpanzee with a mischievous glint in his eyes and a razor-sharp intelligence, had always been a lively presence at the sanctuary. But it was his relationship with Sarah, his human caretaker, that made him truly unique. Charlie was not just another animal under Sarah's care. He was her companion, her confidant. When he was brought in as a baby, vulnerable and in desperate need of nurturing, Sarah was there to guide him through his recovery, tending to him with a tenderness that transcended the professional role she was assigned. He had responded in kind, following her lead, intuitively understanding her routines, her moods, the nuances of her voice. They shared quiet moments, Sarah reading aloud, Charlie sitting by her side, his fingers brushing over the edges of the pages, as if he could understand the stories she was telling. It was in these moments that their bond deepened, and in return for her care, Charlie gave her his unwavering trust. But Sarah's transfer to another project shattered that fragile harmony. One day, without warning, Sarah was no longer there, and Charlie was left in the quiet aftermath. For the first time in years, the sanctuary felt too big, too silent. Charlie began to wander aimlessly, searching for her. He spent days pacing the area where she had once been, sitting outside her office, staring at the door as though expecting her to reappear. The once vibrant chimpanzee, known for his energy and curiosity, now seemed defeated, as though the light had gone out of his world. It was heart-wrenching to watch, his playful demeanor replaced by an all-consuming sadness. Then the paintings began. At first they were small, almost dismissive strokes of color, abstract and erratic, but over time they grew more deliberate, more emotional. It was as though Charlie was trying to make sense of the chaos inside him, using the only medium he had to express the grief that words could not. The canvases were bright, a riot of color, yet they conveyed a profound loneliness. One painting, in particular, was striking, a portrait of Sarah, not a realistic representation, but an abstract vision filled with swirls of red, yellow, and blue, an overwhelming burst of color that seemed to capture her essence. It was chaotic, yet beautiful, full of emotion that no one had expected from a chimpanzee. The eyes, though distorted, were undeniably human, and the shape of the face seemed to echo Sarah's features, an uncanny likeness that defied reason. The sanctuary staff were baffled. Charlie had never shown an interest in painting like this before. He had always dabbled with tools, but this was something else entirely. The way the canvas pulsed with emotion, it was as if he had captured the very essence of Sarah, his grief and his longing in one moment. No one could explain it. The portrait felt like a message, an unspoken plea. How had Charlie known to paint this likeness of Sarah so vividly and with such raw emotion before anyone could even tell him she was gone? It was almost as if, in his own way, Charlie had already understood the depth of her absence, long before they could find the words to say it aloud. The portrait stood as a testament to their connection, an unspoken declaration that, even in her absence, Sarah had never truly left him. Months had passed since Sarah's departure, and Charlie's world seemed to have retreated into a quiet, somber rhythm. His once spirited energy had waned into something almost akin to resignation. He no longer searched the hallways for her, nor did he stand by her office door, his gaze fixed with a hope that never came to fruition. The sanctuary, a place once bustling with the sound of his laughter, had grown eerily silent, its atmosphere heavy with a sorrow that clung to every corner. The staff had grown accustomed to his melancholic state, their hearts sinking every time they saw him, until that one morning when the quiet was shattered. The day Sarah returned, even for a brief visit, was a day no one could have predicted. She stepped into Charlie's enclosure with an almost fragile joy, carrying with her a nervous energy that belied the excitement she felt. She had come back to check on him, to see the progress he had made, though she hardly expected anything out of the ordinary. But the moment her eyes met Charlie's, the world seemed to hold its breath. For an agonizing minute, neither moved, as though the universe itself had paused to witness the reunion. Charlie stood frozen, his gaze locked on hers, a silent recognition passing between them. And then, in an explosive burst of energy, he darted toward her, his face lighting up in an expression of pure joy. His arms stretched out, his fingers reaching for the woman who had been both mother and guide to him for so long. The sanctuary staff, watching this scene unfold, were overcome with emotion, their faces painted with smiles that quickly morphed into tears. It was a moment of deep, unspoken connection, a moment that transcended the boundaries of language and logic. But just as Sarah was preparing to embrace him, her eyes were drawn to something unusual, a painting propped up against the side of the enclosure. It was a work she recognized instantly, the same abstract portrait that had caused so much confusion, the chaotic swirl of color that Charlie had painted months before, now stood in stark contrast to the room's newfound peace. Sarah took a hesitant step toward it, her heart pounding in her chest. She could hardly believe her eyes as she approached the canvas. There, among the vibrant reds and blues, she noticed something strange, something new. A final stroke had been added, just that morning. It was subtle, almost delicate, yet it captured a detail so precise it was almost otherworldly. A tiny, intricate depiction of her face, rendered in the same chaotic strokes, but unmistakably her. In that moment, Sarah realized what she was seeing. Charlie had painted her return before she even set foot in the sanctuary. It was as though he had known, not in a way that was logical or explainable, but in a way that seemed born from a deeper, more intuitive connection between them. Her breath caught in her throat, and tears welled up in her eyes. How had he known? How had Charlie, with no way of knowing that she would come back, predicted this reunion? The question hung in the air, unanswered. The logical part of her mind tried to reason it out. Maybe it was coincidence. Maybe it was his extraordinary intuition. But the raw emotion in that moment told her something far more profound. Charlie's love for her wasn't bound by time, nor by the limits of logic. It was a bond that transcended space and reason, a connection so deep that it seemed to defy explanation. The staff, too, stood in awe, their eyes welling with tears as they watched this moment unfold before them. They had seen animals form connections with humans before, but this was something beyond the realm of understanding. It was as if their souls were intertwined, communicating in ways that words or logic could never fully capture. And as Charlie clutched Sarah's hand, the sanctuary was filled with an overwhelming sense of awe and wonder. It was a love that defied all boundaries, a testament to the inexplicable, unshakable bond between an animal and the human who had given him a chance at life. The sanctuary staff could only watch, speechless, as the extraordinary unfolded before them. As Sarah sat with Charlie, her arms wrapped gently around him, the weight of the moment settled into the room like an invisible presence. The sanctuary's familiar sounds seemed distant, muted in the wake of what had just transpired. The air was thick with a reverence that hung between the people in the room, the staff who had witnessed this improbable bond unfold over the years. No words could capture the depth of the emotions that swirled through the space. Charlie had known she would return, that much was undeniable, and in that knowledge he had found a way to heal himself. The painting, chaotic and raw, yet eerily accurate, spoke volumes about the way Charlie had coped with his pain. It was as though the brushstrokes had been his silent plea, an effort to preserve the connection he had lost, to hold on to hope when all other threads seemed to fray. Each splatter of color, each abstract swirl, had been more than just art. It had been his anchor, a way to navigate the confusion that had consumed him. Sarah's absence had left a void, one that seemed too vast to comprehend. Yet somehow, through his painting, Charlie had spoken the language of longing and love in a way that no one had fully understood until now. Sarah, holding the portrait close to her chest, as if it were a precious, fragile treasure, whispered softly, "I'm here. I'm never leaving again." Her voice cracked with emotion, carrying the weight of promises made and promises broken. Charlie's eyes, once distant and clouded with sorrow, softened as he heard the words. His expression, tender and knowing, shifted as he leaned in toward her. His fingers, gentle and deliberate, traced the contours of her face, his touch an almost imperceptible reassurance. It was as though he needed to confirm that she was real, that she had truly come back to him after all this time. His hand lingered on her cheek, the contact more grounding than words could ever be. The staff watched, their hearts full to the brim, eyes misty with the intensity of the moment. They had seen animals grieve, and they had seen humans connect with animals, but this was different. This was something beyond understanding. There was a peace settling over them, one that washed away the confusion of earlier days. They were witnessing something that defied all expectations, a bond so rare and pure that it could not be explained away by logic or science. It wasn't simply the reunion of two beings, it was the reunion of hearts that had been separated by distance, but never by love. It was a reminder that love, in its truest form, is not confined by the structures we create. It knows no boundaries, no species, no limits. It simply exists. Charlie's painting was not just an act of art. It was his way of ensuring that the love between him and Sarah was not forgotten, not lost to time. In the end, the sanctuary staff realized that what they had witnessed was something truly miraculous, not just the return of a beloved caretaker, but the undeniable power of a bond that transcended all. They were not witnessing a chimpanzee who painted. They were witnessing the quiet, unspoken depth of an animal's love, of a love so profound that it bridged the impossible. The tears they shed that day were not from sorrow, but from a profound, overwhelming gratitude. They had been privileged to witness something rare, something that would stay with them forever, a reminder that love, in all its forms, is the most powerful force of all.